The cup is already shaking. Not enough to spill, just enough to sing against the wooden table. A thin ceramic hum. A baker freezes mid-knead. Flour hangs in the air between his fingers. The oven breathes behind him, red and steady. Outside, a mule refuses to move forward. Its hooves scrape basalt. The ground answers with a vibration too small to name. On the windowsill, a line of ash settles into the cracks of the stone. It looks like dust. It has always looked like dust. A boy crouches by the gutter, guiding a tiny reed boat through a ribbon of water. The surface trembles, distorting the reflection of the mountain. He waits for it to stop. It does. He goes back to sailing. From somewhere beyond the city walls, a low sound rolls through the air. Not thunder, not yet. The kind of sound people decide is something else. In a courtyard, figs split open in the heat, sweet, overripe. Bees gather. A woman presses her palm against a hairline crack running through the painted face of Venus on her wall. The plaster feels warm, warmer than it should. The mountain stands exactly where it stood yesterday, broad, patient, unmoving. They woke up believing this was just another ordinary day. A fisherman along the coast spits into water that refuses to ripple correctly. The sea feels tight, as if holding something back. No one looks up for long. No one ever does. The ash continues to settle, soft, almost affectionate, into door hinges, into bread dough, into lungs not yet aware of their future. It smells faintly of sulfur, but Pompeii smells like many things: bread, wine, sweat, stone after heat. No one would leave for a smell. The cup stops trembling. Silence returns. Morning enters Pompeii slowly. Light spills over tiled roofs and slides down painted walls the color of dried pomegranate. The basalt streets are already warm beneath bare feet. Laundry hangs between windows like quiet flags of surrender to another hot day. The mountain watches. From this angle, it looks benevolent, protective even, a green shoulder rising beyond vineyards heavy with grapes. Farmers call it soil generous. The vines grow thick here. The wine travels far. The smell of bread returns, dense, yeasted, comforting. Sulfur lingers beneath it, thin as a memory no one bothers to recall. A bronze fountain coughs water into a stone basin. Children crowd it, splashing, arguing, inventing rules for games that will not matter tomorrow. The water trembles once, then settles into its circular rhythm. Pompeii is not Rome. It does not pretend to rule the world. It trades, it bathes, it paints its walls with bright gods and scandalous jokes. It carves political promises into plaster. It argues loudly. It eats well. In the Forum, Marcus, the cloth merchant, unfurls dyed fabric like captured sunsets. A slave boy smooths wrinkles with careful palms. Across the square, Livia, who sells garum in small clay jars, complains about heat and taxes in the same breath. The air is already thick with conversation. Above it all, a faint haze softens the sky. No one remarks on it. The amphitheater stands empty this morning, its stone ribs cooling from yesterday's noise. Footprints in the dust remain undisturbed, like paused applause. In the baths, steam gathers along curved ceilings, droplets forming and falling in slow intervals. Drip, drip. That sound again, a rhythm beneath the rhythm. The city moves with the confidence of permanence. Walls feel solid, streets feel mapped, lives feel scheduled. Appointments are kept, debts are counted, bread is baked at the same hour it was yesterday. There is comfort in repetition. We recognize it in our own time, the way a calendar page flips without warning, yet we trust tomorrow to resemble today. Pompeii trusts tomorrow. The vineyards trust tomorrow. Even the dogs sleeping in doorways trust tomorrow. Before we walk further into the market and deeper into these streets, stay a little longer. Listen to how the city breathes. Feel how ordinary it insists on being. The sulfur note sharpens just briefly. A pigeon lifts suddenly from a rooftop, startled by nothing visible. The mountain does not move. It simply waits. The market wakes in layers. First, the sound of wood against wood, stalls unfolding like tired limbs. Then the scrape of crates across stone. Then voices, always voices. The bread seller stacks loaves still warm, their crusts cracking softly as they cool. Steam rises into the morning light. A woman presses one to her cheek before paying, judging heat the way others judge gold. Flour dust floats between them, catching in a shaft of sun. Sulfur lingers underneath. Faint, familiar. At the fish stand, Lucius, who has never left the coastline, arranges silver bodies over crushed ice hauled from cellars at dawn. He squints at the sky only long enough to decide it will not interfere with business. The sea felt strange earlier, but markets do not wait for feelings. Across from him, Sabina counts copper coins into careful stacks. One for oil, one for lentils, one to save. She does not look up when the ground gives a shallow, almost playful tremor. The jars rattle. No one screams. A few laugh. Another reminder, someone mutters. Reminders are common here. The fresco painter arrives with pigments wrapped in cloth. He has promised a patron a new scene of Bacchus by week's end. He dips a finger into red ochre, testing its thickness. The wall he will paint on has a hairline crack near the corner. He chooses not to mention it. Donkeys move slowly through the narrow streets, baskets swaying. Sweat darkens their hides. A boy walks behind them, flicking flies away with a branch. He glances toward the mountain only when the flies scatter suddenly, as if startled by something he cannot hear. Commerce continues. Wine poured, contracts murmured, arguments resolved with shrugs and small gestures of apology. Pompeii believes in transaction, in exchange, in the steady rhythm of give and take. Money moves like water through its veins, reassuring everyone that the world is functioning as it should. It is hard to imagine catastrophe while holding fresh bread. It is harder still while bargaining over olives. Before we turn toward the shaded arcades and gambling tables tucked behind them, stay close to this noise. Let it surround you. The city feels alive because it is busy. Busy feels safe. Above the rooftops, the haze thickens almost imperceptibly. A dog begins barking at nothing in particular. The coins continue to clink. And somewhere beneath the stone and soil, something shifts without asking permission. In the villa overlooking the vineyards, the shutters are opened wide to let in the morning light. Marcellus, whose name is painted in red near the entrance to remind passers-by of his importance, reclines while a servant fans him with woven reeds. The mosaic floor beneath his feet depicts waves and dolphins, a sea permanently frozen in motion. He prefers this sea, predictable, decorative, controlled. From here, the city looks orderly. Smoke rises from ovens in disciplined lines. Streets appear narrow but manageable. The mountain frames the horizon like a loyal guardian. He has invested in vineyards at its slopes. The soil there is famously fertile. Below, in a cramped insula near the gate, Gaius, the laborer, ties leather straps around cracked sandals. He rents a room barely wide enough for his bed. The plaster flakes onto his blanket at night. When the tremor passes through the building, dust falls from the ceiling in a soft gray curtain. He does not complain. Tremors are common. At the baths, senators and freedmen share steam but not status. Conversations float above the water like oil. Politics, gossip, a rumor about unrest in distant provinces. Someone jokes about the mountain grumbling again. Laughter echoes against stone. The sulfur smell sharpens for a moment in the humid air, then fades into sweat and perfumed oil.
Illusion is strongest where comfort is thickest. In the Forum, candidates for office gesture confidently beside painted slogans promising stability. Stability is always promised. It is rarely examined. A slave pauses while carrying amphorae, feeling a vibration through the soles of his feet before anyone else does. He waits for someone of higher standing to react. No one does, so he continues walking. We have seen this before, in other cities, in other centuries, how those closest to the ground feel change first, yet look upward for permission to believe it. The mountain remains unchanged, still green, still broad, still useful. Marcellus lifts a cup of wine and declares the harvest will be excellent this year. Below his villa, a thin thread of ash drifts invisibly across grape leaves, settling into the folds. The servants brush it away. It looks like dust. It has always looked like dust. Somewhere deep beneath the vineyards, a pressure builds without audience, without applause, without concern for status. The mosaics do not tremble, but the earth beneath them does.
The city has edges most visitors never notice. Behind the painted houses and the wide streets of the Forum, alleys narrow until shoulders brush stone. Water runs where it can, not where it should. The gutters carry everything: wash water, scraps, broken amphora shards, whispers. The smell here is different. Bread fades, wine fades, sulfur lingers longer. In a courtyard near the Herculaneum gate, an old woman named Tullia sorts through cracked pottery, deciding what can be patched and what must be discarded. She keeps a basket of nails and twine for repairs. Nothing is thrown away easily here. Above her, laundry stiffens in the sun. A tremor shivers through the wall. One clothespin falls. She looks up, waits. The tremor passes. A rat darts from a drain, startled before anyone else is. Dogs growl low in their throats. Chickens scatter at a sudden chaotic burst of wings, then settle again as if embarrassed by their own alarm. Near the amphitheater's outer wall, graffiti overlaps older graffiti, layers of ink and charcoal promises. Vote for Lucius. Felix was here. I was angry. I loved her. Declarations of permanence written on plaster that flakes at a touch. The crack in the fresco of Venus has widened by a finger's width. The painter pretends not to see it. He works around it, blending colors so the fracture looks intentional. There is always a way to paint around a problem. In the public latrines, water trickles steadily beneath stone seats worn smooth by years of routine. The trickle changes pitch for a moment, as if interrupted by something heavier moving below, then returns to its usual rhythm. Drip. Drip. A boy presses his ear against the ground in play, claiming he can hear the sea from here. His friends laugh. He insists it sounds like breathing. What do we ignore in our own streets because it has always been there? What quiet signal do we rename as background noise simply because listening would require action? The sulfur note sharpens again. This time, no one comments. In the distance, a thin plume rises from the mountain's shoulder, too pale to be called smoke, too faint to be called anything at all. Laundry sways. The old woman ties another knot. The alley remains narrow, holding its breath. In a shaded room overlooking the Forum, men with rings heavy on their fingers speak in measured tones. They discuss grain shipments, road repairs, a complaint about noise near the amphitheater. One mentions the tremors, casually, as if remarking on wind. It passes, another replies. Wine is poured. The cups do not spill this time. From their vantage, Pompeii appears intact, streets aligned, markets humming, columns upright, the mountain framed beautifully between rooftops like a painted backdrop commissioned by the gods. Power prefers elevation. It is easier to believe in control when looking down. Below, in the courtyard where Tullia mends broken pottery, a sharper tremor knocks over her basket of nails.
They scatter across stone with a metallic chorus. She does not bend to collect them immediately. She listens. The sound beneath the ground is no longer a murmur. It feels closer, thicker, like something shifting weight. In the temple, a crack widens enough for light to pierce through in a thin blade. The priest pauses mid-chant, only for a breath, then continues. In the bakery, the oven flame flickers sideways, pulled by a draft that seems to come from nowhere. Outside the city walls, along the slope of the mountain, small stones begin rolling down dry paths where goats once wandered. No one watches long enough to connect the movement. In the shaded room, the men laugh at a story about Rome, distant, grand, always louder than Pompeii. They speak of harvest forecasts, of property, of next season's profits. One of them says the mountain has been quiet for years. Quiet is often mistaken for harmless. We do this too, mistake silence for safety, routine for permanence, reassurance for truth. The haze above the city thickens just slightly more. The sunlight dims by a shade so subtle it feels imagined. A servant enters with fresh wine. He hesitates before crossing the threshold, feeling the floor vibrate faintly beneath his bare feet. No one asks why he pauses. The decision has already been made. Not formally, not written, but assumed. Everything continues. The mountain remains exactly where it has always been, waiting without impatience. Evening arrives gently. The light softens against red walls and mosaic floors. Shadows stretch across basalt streets that have carried the same footsteps for generations. Oil lamps flicker alive one by one, small constellations brought down to earth. The market quiets. The last coins change hands. Bread that was warm at dawn is torn apart at wooden tables. Laughter rises from courtyards. Someone sings off-key. The city exhales. The sulfur smell thickens in the cooling air. Not strong enough to alarm, just strong enough to notice, if anyone were trying to notice. The bronze fountain in the square still trickles, drip, drip. The rhythm beneath the rhythm continues, but slower now, heavier. A dog whines at nothing visible. Chickens refuse their perches and settle again. In the villa above the vineyards, Marcellus admires the mountains silhouetted against the darkening sky. It looks magnificent at night, calm, immovable, a monument to permanence. In the narrow insula, Gaius lies on his thin mattress, staring at the ceiling where dust has settled like faint snowfall. He coughs once, then turns on his side. Tullia gathers her scattered nails at last, counting them by touch. The plaster crack in her courtyard has widened enough to catch a fingernail. The fresco painter covers his pigments carefully. He will return tomorrow to finish Bacchus's smile. The sea along the coast is unnaturally still. A thin rain begins, not water, ash. Soft at first, gentle enough to mistake for mist. It lands on rooftops, on vineyards, on the bronze shoulder of a statue wiped clean that morning. It looks like dust. It has always looked like dust, but now it lingers. Oil lamps flicker as particles drift through open doorways. A mother brushes gray powder from her child's hair and laughs softly at the mess. Inside the shaded room near the forum, the men have finished their wine. The topic has shifted to trivialities. Tomorrow's schedule is already assumed. They sleep believing in morning. We know something they do not. That is the quiet cruelty of history. Not the explosion, not the collapse, but the certainty of sleep the night before. The fountain continues its slow drip. The sulfur hangs thicker. The mountain remains invisible in the darkness, yet more present than ever.
The sun will rise on a different world tomorrow. If you wish to walk into that dawn and into other cities balanced on the edge of their own ordinary evenings, remain with us. For now, Pompeii rests, and the ash continues to fall.